Kaprizov out front. Eriksson
into a dangerous area, and they score!
What's hockey without its rivalries? Watching two teams or two players build up some bad blood between one another elevates the game and provides us with that playoff hockey do-or-die energy. There's nothing quite like it, and it always leaves us entertained. Keeping that in mind, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the top 6 NHL Revenge Moments. Wayne Gretzky versus the Edmonton Oilers. Well, we have to start this off with the GOAT, Wayne Gretzky. On August 9th, 1988, arguably the biggest trade in NHL history happened, not only shocking the sports world, but shocking the Great One himself. In the 80s, the Edmonton Oilers, led by Gretzky and Mark Messier, were on an absolute tear, winning 4 Stanley Cups in just 5 years. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But this trade wasn't really about moving Gretzky due to any play decline or anything like that. It was more about the owner Pocklington's business ventures doing poorly and how he was in great need of getting some money back quick. So then this trade happened. Wayne Gretzky, Marty McSorley, and Mike Krushelinski for Jimmy Carson, Martin Gelinas, the Kings' first-round picks in 89, 91, 93, along with $15 million in cash. Gretzky was crushed by this, as you can see from this press conference.
Promised Mess I wouldn't do this.
So now, out of Edmonton and in LA, Gretzky put the drama behind him, and if anything, it motivated him not only to elevate his own game, but the entire LA Kings team. He made an immediate impact in LA. In his first season, Wayne scored 54 goals and put up 114 assists, giving him the Hart Trophy at the end of the year. Having Gretzky on the ice, of course, brought out the rise in productivity from his teammates like forward Bernie Nicholls, who had an explosive year, posting a career-high 70 goals and 150 points. Clearly, Gretzky made himself comfortable in LA as the team entered the playoffs in the 4th seed and had the potential to make a deep run. Well, who did they have to play in the first round? None other than Gretzky's former team, the Edmonton Oilers. Here it is, the ultimate revenge opportunity. Knocking out the franchise who sent you packing, nothing could feel better. There was a lot of pressure on Gretzky here, and the series was a nail-biter. Edmonton started off the series coming out swinging, dominating in the first 4 games, and taking the series lead 3-1. Things weren't looking good for LA, but thankfully for Gretzky, he wasn't about to let his former team take this away from him. So, on the cusp of elimination, the Kings turned it around and were able to grab the next 2 games, tying up the series at 3 each. And then in Game 7, Gretzky and the Kings had the Oilers on the ropes and kept the momentum going as they took that elimination game 6-3, with Gretzky tallying 2 goals and an assist, putting that nail in the coffin on his former team just less than a year after they traded him. Jack Eichel versus Buffalo. Now, we've spoken a ton about Eichel and the Sabres drama on this channel, so I'll spare you the details and sum it up like this. Eichel went from being the team superstar and face of the franchise to being public enemy number 1. He and the organization just could not see eye to eye on how to handle his neck injury, as the Sabres organization refused to let him do a procedure Jack felt was necessary to do. This, of course, led to more drama and Jack refusing to play with Buffalo. So finally, moving past the chaos, Eichel found his new home in Vegas, and off the bat, the franchise welcomed him with open arms and allowed him to do the surgery he wanted to do. So right away, Jack was loving his new home and his new team, quickly forgetting about that dumpster fire he left behind in Buffalo. It took Eichel some time to recover and rehab back to full form, but he finally joined the Golden Knights for his first full season with them in the 2022-23 season. However, he did get some games under his belt at the end of the 21-22 season, and one of those games was back in Buffalo. This was Jack's first time returning since being traded, and the crowd was absolutely relentless when it came to letting Jack know how they felt about him. Unfortunately for Jack, he was held pointless in that game, and the Sabres took the win 3-1. Following the loss, it was clear Eichel had some animosity towards the franchise and their fans, as he commented saying this: "It's the loudest I've ever heard this place ever. Really, it only took 7 years and me leaving for them to get into the game. They must be booing me because they wish I was still here." Not forgetting how the fans treated him and how the Sabres took that first win, the next time Vegas and Eichel were in Buffalo, things went a little differently. Through 2 periods, Jack was scoreless, but once the third hit, the floodgates opened and Jack got himself a hat trick. With every goal, Jack would look to the crowd, taunting them back and rubbing it in their faces. You could tell in the way that Jack was celebrating each goal that he was clearly playing with emotion, and in his post-game interview, he even discussed how in that first game back, he was left a little hurt by the fans' reactions, so this time around, he knew what to expect and used it as his motivator. Steve Sullivan versus a Colorado Avalanche fan. Now this one's a little different from the others on the list and has a lot more to do with karma and how fans can sometimes think they're above the game. On January 6, 2001, the Chicago Blackhawks and Colorado Avalanche were facing off, and at this time, these two teams couldn't be any different. The Blackhawks were a very underwhelming and hopeless team who, in a span of 10 years, made the playoffs only once, while the Avalanche were one of the elite teams in the league who would go on to win the Stanley Cup just a few months later after this incident occurred. During the second period, Chicago's Steve Sullivan took a high stick from Avalanche's Alex Tanguay as Tanguay attempted to clear the puck from his own zone. During this clear attempt, his stick popped up and clipped Sullivan in the face, leaving a cut on the bridge of his nose. Now, you don't have to be a genius to know a stick in the face hurts, especially when it's coming from an NHL player. The whistle blew and Sullivan made his way back to the bench, clearly in pain, and that's when an Avs fan in the front row began to mock and heckle Sullivan for being injured. If there's one thing fans should never do, it's get involved by chirping the pros, especially in this manner, because clearly all it did was motivate Sullivan as he went on to score 2 back-to-back shorthanded goals against Patrick Waugh. As the second period was winding down, Patrick Waugh attempted to clear the puck, but it bounced over the glass and hit a fan right in the head. Take a wild guess and guess which fan the puck hit. That's right, that same douchebag who was taunting Sullivan when he was injured. Putting the cherry on top, Sullivan went over to the fan and gave him the same treatment that the fan gave him. On top of that, even this fan's wife was on Sullivan's side as she gave him the thumbs up knowing her husband deserved it. Matthew Tkachuk versus Zack Cassian. What I enjoy most about these two is that it involves the Battle of Alberta, so every time these two teams faced off against each other, it would pour more and more gasoline on the flame that was Cassian and Tkachuk's hate for one another. It all started on January 11th of 2020. The Oilers were in Calgary and Tkachuk rocked Cassian twice throughout the game. But even before those two notable hits, Cassian had a bone to pick with Tkachuk and was trying to get Tkachuk to drop the gloves. Cassian was all over him, knocking his helmet off and doing everything he could to say, okay, can we drop them now or what? But Tkachuk was shying away from it, retreating, wanting nothing to do with it. Cassian didn't care and went for the fight anyway, throwing Tkachuk down to the ice, swinging away. As these two were escorted off the ice, they were trash-talking the whole way off. Now, let's fast forward to that first big hit, where Tkachuk crushes Cassian behind Calgary's net, adding more fuel to that fire. Then the second hit, again behind Calgary's net, which really makes you think that Tkachuk was looking for these hits, as a winger shouldn't really be that deep in their own zone. Now this is a hit that I understand Cassian having a problem with and completely understand why he wanted to drop the gloves. It wasn't that dirty of a hit, but Cassian was blindsided and it felt like there was intent to injure. What was even more frustrating about this was that Tkachuk was acting like he had no idea why Cassian wanted to fight and didn't participate in dropping the gloves. That basically goes against the hockey code that if you make a hit like that, you have to answer the bell. But Tkachuk refused to, which didn't sit well with Cassian, the Oilers, and a lot of people around the hockey world. In that moment though, Cassian did not care if Tkachuk was going to drop the gloves or not. Either way, he was going to get his revenge. Here's what Cassian had to say after the game.
To me, those are two dangerous hits. If they're clean, they're still predatorial, which is completely fine. I'm a big boy. I love big boy hockey. But if you're going to play big boy hockey, you got to answer the bell every once in a while.
It didn't end there. The very next meeting between these two teams, this time in Edmonton, Tkachuk did what Cassian called on him to do and finally answered the bell. Shane Wright versus the Montreal Canadiens. For every draft class, there's always top prospect projections speculating which player will be going first overall. These projections can change several times leading up to the draft, but in the summer of 2022, Shane Wright had been long expected to be taken at that number 1 overall pick. The Montreal Canadiens had the first pick of the draft, and shocking everyone, they didn't end up picking Wright and ended up picking Slovakian forward Slafkovsky instead. Shane Wright then slipped down to the 4th overall pick and was drafted by the Seattle Kraken. When Shane was called up to the stage, he was giving an absolutely vicious stare down to the Montreal Canadiens.
Not provide the same type of offense you get from Logan Cooley or Yuri Slafkovsky. It's super important.
When asked about slipping to the 4th overall pick, Wright said that he was definitely going to have a chip on his shoulder. Fast forward to the beginning of the 2022 season, and Shane Wright has found his way into the Kraken's lineup to start the season. However, he went scoreless in his first 7 games. In his 8th game, the Kraken faced off against none other than the Montreal Canadiens, and Shane Wright was finally able to get that monkey off his back, notching his first career NHL goal against the team who rejected him, John Tavares and the New York Islanders. John Tavares was the face of the Islanders after being drafted by them in 2009 first overall. Through 9 seasons of Tavares playing with the Islanders, the team only made the postseason 3 times. Coming to the end of his 6-year, $33 million contract, Tavares hit free agency that summer, which left Islanders hopeful, wondering why he didn't waive his no-trade clause at last year's deadline to give the team a chance to at least get something back for him. But it did not work out that way, and Tavares hit free agency where 6 teams, including the Islanders, were set to meet with Tavares. Now, Tavares had been on record back in 2017 saying that he had hoped to stay with the Islanders, but the Toronto Maple Leafs made him an offer he couldn't refuse. 7 years for $77 million, and to play for your hometown, how could you turn that down? Once the deal was done, it left many unsettled. It was a tough pill to swallow for everyone. As teammates, we wanted him on our team. Fans wanted the same thing, said Anders Lee. With Tavares now in Toronto, the Islanders went on to shock the NHL by leading the Metropolitan Division with new coach Barry Trotz and had their sights on the postseason, all without their former captain. They weren't the only ones having a good season. Tavares was also having himself a career year with his new team. Fast forward to his first game back in New York, the Islanders organization played a tribute for Tavares as a way of saying thank you for all that he's done during his time there. As Tavares saluted the fans, they then started to boo him, clearly still sour about how he left. Well, getting revenge on his former team and the booing fans, Tavares didn't just set a new career high in his first game back with 87 points, he also scored the game winner as the Leafs beat the Islanders 2-1. Thanks for watching our videos. Don't forget to leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button.